The Great Hall of Station Horizon had never been so full. Representatives from 47 species filled the curved seats that rose like waves around the central speaking platform. Light from a dying star poured through the crystal ceiling, painting everything in shades of gold and red. This was the heart of galactic civilization. This was where history was made. Una Park stood at the human podium and watched the aliens whisper to each other. She had been an ambassador for 23 years. She knew what those whispers meant. She had seen the draft of Resolution 7 Omega before anyone else. She knew what was coming. Behind her, Admiral Do-Hyun Kang sat with his hands folded on the table. His uniform was perfect. His face showed nothing. Beside him, Director Hana Lee scrolled through her data tablet, pretending to read reports she had already memorized. They had traveled 9 months through deep space to be here. They had known the outcome before they left Earth. The High Speaker, a tall creature with silver skin and 6 eyes, raised one of its many arms. The hall fell silent. "We now vote on Resolution 7 Omega, it announced. The permanent restriction of human expansion beyond their current 17 star systems. All species will state their position. Una listened as the votes came in. The Villani voted yes. They had always feared humanity. Their delegates spoke of human breeding rates, of how quickly human colonies grew, of the danger this posed to galactic stability. The Mortith voted yes. They talked about human aggression, human unpredictability, human refusal to follow the old ways. The Cathari voted no. But their voice was small. The Holani voted no. So did the Cathari and the Blue Mines. But it was not enough. One by one, species that had traded with humanity voted to cage them. Species that had learned medicine from human doctors voted to lock them away. Species that human soldiers had died to protect voted to treat them like dangerous animals. The final count was 39-8. The High Speaker's 6 eyes turned to Una. The entire hall waited for the human response. They expected anger. They expected threats. They had heard stories about human fury, about the wars humans had fought among themselves, about the terrible weapons they had built and then forbidden. Some delegates had brought extra guards today. Others had quietly planned escape routes. Una simply bowed her head once. It was a small movement, graceful, final. "The human delegation acknowledges the Council's decision," she said. Her voice was calm. It carried through the silent hall without effort. She turned to look at Do-Hyun and Hana. The Admiral's jaw was tight, but he nodded. Hana closed her tablet and stood. "We withdraw." Una continued, facing the Council again. "Effective immediately. From this Council, from all treaties we have signed, from all shared communication networks, from all defense agreements, from all scientific exchanges, from all trade routes, from everything." The silence that followed was unlike anything the hall had ever known. It was the silence of a held breath, the silence of a heart stopping. The Villani delegate leaned forward. "You cannot simply withdraw. There are procedures." There are no procedures," Una said. "You have declared us a threat to be contained. We accept your judgment. You will contain us by our own choice. We will close our borders. We will recall our citizens. We will shut down our stations in your space. And we will never speak to this council again." "This is extreme," the Mortith representative said. "We only asked for limits on your expansion. We did not ask you to leave." Una almost smiled. "Almost. You asked us to accept that we are less than you. That our growth must be controlled while yours continues freely. That our future must be decided by species who fear us." She shook her head slowly. "We will not beg for space in your galaxy. We will make our own." She stepped down from the podium. Do-Hyun and Hana rose to follow her. The human delegation walked toward the great doors of the chamber. Their footsteps echoed in the terrible quiet. No one stopped them. No guards moved. No delegate spoke. At the door, Una paused. She did not turn around. "You wanted humanity contained," she said. "Remember that you chose this. Remember that we tried to be your partners, and you decided we were your problem instead. When you regret this, and you will remember that you did this to yourselves." The doors closed behind them. In the hall, the delegates looked at each other. Some seemed relieved. The humans were gone. The threat was managed. Order would be restored, but others felt something different. Something cold had entered the room. Something they could not name. Within 6 standard hours, every human ship in Council space had vanished. The great cargo vessels that had carried goods between 100 worlds were gone. The medical stations that humans had built on frontier planets went dark. The communication relays that humans had maintained for centuries switched off. The borders of human space, which had always been open and welcoming, sealed shut. Probes sent to investigate returned with their memory cores empty. Ships that tried to enter simply disappeared. Trade Minister Wu Jin-cho oversaw the final shutdown. He was a quiet man who had spent his life building connections between species. Now he severed them. One by one. With careful precision, he made sure every human debt was paid. He made sure every human contract was honored. He left nothing behind that could be called unfair. Then he boarded the last human transport and left Council space forever. On Station Horizon, the delegates slowly returned to their normal lives. They passed new resolutions. They made new plans. They congratulated themselves on solving the human problem so cleanly. But in the months that followed, strange things began to happen. Small things at first. Machines broke down that no one could fix. Supply lines failed that no one could restore. Problems arose that everyone assumed someone else would solve. It took them a long time to realize the truth. Humanity had not just been a member of the galactic community. They had been the foundation it was built on, and now the foundation was gone. The galaxy did not notice the crack in its heart until it was far too late. 3 years passed. The galaxy learned what silence truly meant. Minji Yoon was the last human left on Station Horizon. She had been a cultural liaison, a small job with no real power. When the withdrawal happened, she had chosen to stay. Someone needed to watch. Someone needed to witness what came next. She sat alone in her small quarters, watching the news feeds from across known space. The reports grew darker every day. The Villani were dying. Their northern colonies had depended on water purifiers built by human engineers, small machines, no larger than a fist, that could clean any water source and make it safe to drink. The Villani had used them for generations. They had never learned how they worked. They had never needed to. Now the machines were breaking down. One by one, they failed. Villani engineers took them apart, studied every piece, and could not understand the design. Human technology was different. It worked on principles that other species had never discovered. It was simple on the outside and impossibly complex on the inside. Without clean water, the Villani crops began to fail. Without crops, people began to starve. The Villani government sent desperate messages to the sealed human borders. They offered trade. They offered apologies. They offered anything. The border remained silent. Minji remembered a human engineer named Jisoo, who had designed those purifiers. She had met him once at a diplomatic dinner. He was a shy man who did not like crowds. He had told her that he built the purifiers to last forever, because he wanted Villani children to always have clean water. Now, Jisoo was beyond the border, unreachable, and his gift was becoming a curse. The Mortith faced a different kind of disaster. Their military fleet was the largest in the galaxy. Thousands of warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. The Mortith had always been proud of their power. They had voted for human containment because they believed humans might one day challenge their dominance. They did not realize that their entire navigation system was built on mathematics created by a human. Suho Lim had been a quiet mathematician who lived on a small moon far from Earth. 40 years ago, he had developed a new way to calculate paths through twisted space. His equations were elegant and perfect. The Mortith had adopted them because they worked better than anything else. But Suho's system needed updates. Space changed, stars moved, gravity shifted. Without regular adjustments, the old calculations became dangerous. The first accident happened in the Apex corridor, a busy shipping lane where hundreds of vessels passed each day. Two Mordyth cruisers, following outdated navigation data, tried to occupy the same point in space at the same time. The explosion killed 40,000 people. The Mordyth blamed human sabotage. They sent warships to the human border to demand answers. The ships found nothing. No stations. No defense platforms. No human presence at all, just empty space and silence. They tried to fire weapons at the border itself, hoping to provoke a response. Their missiles simply vanished. Their energy beams bent away into nothing. Whatever the humans had done to seal their space, it was beyond anything the Mordyth understood. The warships returned home. More accidents followed. The Mordyth fleet began to fall apart. On Station Horizon, the Council held emergency meetings. They discussed the Villani famine. They discussed the Mordyth failures. They discussed the thousand small problems that seemed to grow larger every day. Medical equipment designed by humans stopped working. Communication satellites built by humans went dark. Trade routes that humans had protected became hunting grounds for pirates. The Ketheri representative, an old creature with gentle eyes, asked the question that no one wanted to answer. Did we ever count how much we depended on them? No one had. No one had thought it mattered. Humans had been everywhere, doing everything. They built machines for species that could not build their own. They solved problems that others could not solve. They went to dangerous places and made them safe. They asked for little in return. Sometimes they asked for nothing at all. The galaxy had taken them for granted. And now they were gone. Counselor Bora Han spent her days trying to restore contact with humanity. She was not human herself, but she had lived among them for years. She understood them better than most. She knew that they were not cruel. They had not left to punish the galaxy. They had left because they had no other choice. She sent messages to the border every day. She used every frequency, every code, every language she knew. She begged. She apologized. She promised that things would be different. The border did not answer. One night, Min Ji-yoon found Bora sitting alone in an empty observation deck, staring at the stars toward human space. "They can't hear you," Minji said softly. "Or they choose not to." Bora looked at her with tired eyes. "Do you hate us? For what we did?" Minji thought about the question for a long time. "I don't hate anyone," she finally said. "But I warned you. I told the council what would happen. I said that humans were not a problem to be solved. They were partners to be treasured, and we didn't listen." "No, you didn't." Bora turned back to the stars. "What are they doing out there? Beyond the border?" Minji did not know. No one knew. Human space had become a mystery. Some species believed the humans were building weapons. Others thought they were simply hiding, waiting for the council to collapse. A few hoped they would return and make everything right again. The truth was simpler and more frightening. Humanity was not hiding. Humanity was not planning revenge. Humanity was moving forward, into the unknown depths of the galaxy, finding new worlds and new wonders. They were building a future that did not include the council at all, and somewhere in that darkness, they were about to discover something that would change everything. Something ancient, something hungry, something that had killed civilizations before the first council species had learned to walk. The galaxy had rejected humanity. Soon, it would need them more than ever. But first, it would have to learn just how dark the universe could become. 15 years had passed since humanity left the council behind. Captain Taeho Ryu stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Silent Promise and watched a new star system appear on his screens. This was the 300th system his ship had charted. 300 new worlds that no council species had ever seen. 300 steps into the unknown. Beyond the sealed borders, humanity had not been sitting still. They had been running. Not away from something, but toward everything the galaxy had to offer. They pushed deeper into unmapped space than anyone had ever gone before. They found wonders that made even the oldest human explorers weep with joy. They found crystal forests on frozen moons, where the trees sang when starlight touched them. They found living nebulae that thought in patterns of radio waves and taught humans new forms of mathematics. They found the ruins of ancient civilizations, species that had risen and fallen millions of years before Earth even existed, and they found the hollow. Dr. Unji Baek was the first to understand what they had discovered. She was a xenoarchaeologist, a scientist who studied dead alien cultures. She had spent her life reading the stories written in old stones and broken machines. The hollow was not a planet, it was an absence, a wound in space where 40 star systems should have existed. The stars were still there, but everything else was gone. No planets, no moons, no stations, no life. At the edge of the hollow, Yunji found the markers. They were ancient beyond measure, made of materials that human science could not identify, covered in warnings written in 100 dead languages. Unji worked for 3 months to translate them. When she finally understood, she wished she had never started. The markers told the story of the silence that follows. It was not a creature. It was not a weapon. It was something older and stranger. A force that moved through the galaxy in cycles, cleaning away civilizations the way a tide washes away footprints on a beach. The silence came every 100,000 years. It passed through regions of space like a cold wind, and when it left, nothing remained. Not bodies, not buildings, not memories, just empty space and quiet. 100 species had lived in the 40 systems that were now the hollow. They had been advanced. They had been powerful. They had known the silence was coming, and they had done everything they could to warn others. They had built the markers to give future civilizations time to prepare. Then the silence had come for them, and they had vanished like morning fog. Unji brought her findings to Director Hana Lee at Bastion Station, the hidden heart of human space. Bastion was carved into an asteroid the size of a small moon, invisible to any scanner that did not know exactly where to look. 200 million humans lived there now. It was the capital of humanity's new civilization. Hana read Yunji's report in silence. She was older now, her hair gray and her eyes tired. The years since the withdrawal had been hard. Building a new civilization from nothing was not easy, but humanity had done it before, and they had done it again. How long? Hana asked. The markers tracked the silence's movement through deep space. Based on the patterns, it should enter Council territory in 11 years, maybe 12. And they have no idea it's coming. Their sensors can't even see the hollow. They've never pushed this far out. Only we know. Read. Hana stood and walked to the window of her office. Outside, the lights of Bastion Station glittered like a field of stars. Ships moved between the docking bays, carrying supplies and people to the frontier colonies. Children played in the gardens that humans had grown in the heart of the asteroid. This was what humanity had built in exile. A new beginning. A new hope. We could warn them, Unji said quietly. The Council. We could send them the data. Hana did not answer for a long time. She thought about the vote. About the faces of the delegates who had called humanity dangerous. About the Villani who had named them locusts. About the Mordith who had feared their strength. About the 39 species who had decided that humans needed to be caged. She thought about the human children who had grown up behind sealed borders, who had never met an alien, who only knew the Council as the people who had rejected their grandparents. No, Hana finally said. Unji's eyes widened. Director? Billions will die. Entire species will be wiped out. I know. Hana's voice was heavy. But they made their choice. They told us we were a threat. They told us to stay in our cage. They closed their ears when we tried to help. She turned to face Unji. We will prepare. We will build weapons and defenses that can fight the silence. We will protect our own people. And when the silence comes for the Council, they will learn what it truly means to stand alone. Unji wanted to argue. She wanted to say that this was wrong, that revenge was not justice, that innocent beings would suffer for the mistakes of their leaders, but she remembered something her grandfather had told her. Long ago. He had been a soldier on Earth, before humanity ever reached the stars. When someone pushes you away, he had said, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let them feel the cold. The Council had pushed humanity into the darkness. Now the darkness was coming for them. Humanity would survive. They always survived. It was what they did. But this time, they would not be there to save anyone else. In the shipyards of Bastion Station, construction began on a new fleet. Ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Weapons designed to wound the unwoundable. Armor meant to stand against forces that had erased civilizations. Humanity was getting ready for war. Not with the Council. Not with any species. With the universe itself, and somewhere in the empty dark, the silence continued its long journey toward the light. 24 years after humanity left, 2 years before the end, the first worlds died without warning. Counselor Borahan had spent more than 2 decades trying to reach humanity. She had sent messages every day without fail. She had traveled to the sealed border 17 times, shouting into the void until her voice gave out. She had written letters that would never be read and composed apologies that would never be heard. Nothing worked. The border remained closed. Humanity remained silent. Now she stood in a council chamber that was half empty. Many species had already withdrawn. They had gone home to protect their own worlds, to prepare for whatever was coming. The great alliance that had stood for 12,000 years was falling apart. "We have lost contact with the freehold colonies," the Cathari representative announced. His voice was shaking. "All 17 planets. 6 billion people. Gone." The display screen showed the affected star systems. Yesterday, they had been green. Today, they were gray. No signals. No life signs. No explanation. "What happened to them?" someone asked. "We don't know. Our fastest ships are still 3 weeks away. Long-range scans show nothing. No debris. No bodies. No signs of attack. It's like they simply stopped existing." Bora felt cold. This was the third mass disappearance in 6 months. The Outer Rim worlds had been first. Then the mining colonies in the Belt of Stones. Now the Freehold. Something was moving through the galaxy. Something that left only emptiness behind. The Mordath commander, a massive being covered in armored plates, slammed his fist on the table. "We must strike back. Whatever is doing this, we must find it and destroy it." "Strike back at what?" the Cathari replied. "We can't see it. We can't track it. We don't even know what it is. Then we send everything. Every ship. Every weapon. The Mordath fleet tried that already." Bora's voice was quiet but firm. 300 warships entered the affected zone. None returned. We couldn't even find wreckage. Silence fell over the chamber. The proud Mordath commander had no answer. Bora looked at the display screen. The gray zones were spreading. Day by day, system by system, the galaxy was going dark. She thought about the humans, about Minji Yoon, who had stayed on Station Horizon for 15 years, before finally disappearing one night, leaving only a note that said, "I'm going home." About Admiral Do-Hyun Kang, whose calm face she still remembered from the day of the vote. About Ambassador Yuna Park, who had walked out of this very chamber and never looked back. Where were they now? What were they doing behind their sealed borders? Did they know what was happening? Did they care? An alarm suddenly filled the chamber. Red lights flashed. The display screen flickered and changed, showing a tactical map of the space around Station Horizon itself. "Contact at the outer perimeter," a technician announced, his voice high with fear. "Something is approaching. Something big. We can't get clear readings. Our sensors keep failing." Bora stood and walked to the window. The great crystal viewport showed the stars around the station. She had looked at those stars every day for 24 years. Now, in the distance, some of them were going out, not exploding, not dimming, just vanishing, like candles being snuffed by an invisible hand. "It's here," she whispered. "Whatever destroyed the colonies, it's here." The council erupted in chaos. Delegates ran for escape pods. Guards tried to maintain order. Communications officers sent desperate distress calls to anyone who might listen, but there was no one left to answer. The galaxy had already been hollowed out. The great species that might have helped were gone or dying. The military fleets had been shattered. The old alliances had crumbled. Humanity had been the glue that held everything together. Without them, there was nothing left but pieces. Bora stayed at the window. She watched the darkness grow closer. She thought about her life, about all the things she had done, and all the things she had failed to do. She thought about the vote. 24 years ago, when she had been too afraid to speak against the majority. She could have stood up. She could have said that humanity deserved better. She could have been brave. Instead, she had stayed quiet. And now quiet was all that remained. The darkness was very close now. She could feel it somehow. A pressure against her mind. A cold that seeped through the walls. The station's lights flickered. The alarms fell silent. Bora closed her eyes and prepared to die. Then the border opened. It happened without warning. One moment, human space was sealed and silent. The next, a wave of light exploded outward, pushing back the darkness like a sunrise cutting through night. Bora's eyes flew open. Through the window, she saw something impossible. Ships. Thousands of ships. Tens of thousands. They poured through the reopened border like a river breaking through a dam. They were shaped like nothing she had ever seen, sharp and angular, covered in weapons that glowed with strange energy. At their center flew a vessel larger than Station Horizon itself. Its hull was black as space, but light seemed to gather around it, bending and twisting in ways that hurt to look at. The ships did not slow down. They did not send greetings or demands. They simply flew past the station and headed straight for the darkness. On the display screen, which had somehow started working again, Bora saw a message. Just 2 words. Humanity returns. The first human weapons struck the silence. Explosions of light filled the void. The darkness that had swallowed civilizations suddenly stopped advancing, and then it began to retreat. Bora sank to her knees. Around her, the other delegates were cheering or crying or praying to gods they had almost forgotten. The station's systems came back online. The alarms stayed silent. Outside, the human fleet chased the silence into the deep black. They had come back. After everything the council had done. After all the rejection and fear and cruelty, they had come back. Bora wept. She wept for 24 years of silence. She wept for all the species that had already been lost. She wept for the stubborn, impossible, wonderful humans who had returned to save a galaxy that had never deserved them. The battle was only beginning. But for the first time in years, there was hope. The battle lasted 19 days. Admiral Do-Hyun Kang stood on the bridge of the unconquered Dawn and watched his fleet tear apart a force that had destroyed civilizations. His hair was gray now. His face lined with years of hard work and harder choices, but his eyes were still sharp. His hands were still steady. Beside him stood Yuna Park. She was no longer an ambassador. The quiet diplomat, who had walked out of the council chamber 26 years ago, had become something else entirely. She had led humanity through its darkest hour. She had built a new civilization from nothing. And now she had brought that civilization back to save the galaxy. "Status report," she said. "The silence is fragmenting," an officer replied. "Our dimensional weapons are working. It can't hold its form against sustained fire." Yuna nodded. 20 years of research had gone into those weapons. 20 years of studying the ruins left by previous victims. 20 years of learning how to wound something that had never been wounded before. The human fleet was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. 9,000 ships, each one carrying technology that the Council could not comprehend. Weapons that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Shields that bent space itself. Engines that could outrun light. And the crews. Some were baseline humans, trained from childhood for this moment. Others had volunteered for modifications that made them something more. Faster reflexes, enhanced senses, minds that could process battle data in real time. Humanity had not been idle during its exile. It had been preparing for the end of the world. "Final push," Do-Hyun ordered. "All ships, focus fire on the primary mass. Don't give it time to reform." The fleet obeyed. thousands of weapons fired at once. The silence screamed, not with sound, but with something deeper. A vibration that shook the fabric of reality itself. And then it shattered. The entity that had killed 100 civilizations, that had hunted the galaxy for millions of years, broke apart into 1,000,000 fragments. Each piece flew away into the void. Too weak to threaten anything. "Is it dead?" Yuna asked. "No," Do-hyun replied. "But the calculations say it will take at least 100,000 years for it to reform. Maybe longer. By then, we'll be ready." Yuna allowed herself a small smile. It was the first time she had smiled in a very long time. The war was over. Humanity had won. Now came the harder part. 1 week later, the human delegation returned to Station Horizon. The Great Hall was different now. Many of the seats were empty. Species that had filled this chamber for thousands of years were simply gone. The silence had taken them before humanity arrived, but survivors remained. The Cathari, the Holani, a handful of others who had been lucky or stubborn enough to endure. They watched in silence as the humans walked in. Borahan was waiting at the central platform. She had not slept in days. She had spent every moment helping refugees, coordinating rescue efforts, trying to hold together what little remained of galactic civilization. Now she stood alone, facing the people her council had once rejected. Yuna approached the platform. Her steps were slow and deliberate. Every eye in the chamber followed her. 26 years ago, Yuna began, I stood in this hall and listened to you vote for our containment. You called us dangerous. You called us locusts. You said we needed to be caged for the good of the galaxy. She paused. The silence was absolute. We left. We could have fought. We could have used our ships and our weapons to force you to accept us. But we chose a different path. We chose to show you what the galaxy looked like without humanity in it. Yuna's voice hardened. Now, you have seen. The Villani starved because we were not there to maintain their water systems. The Mordath fleet destroyed itself because we were not there to update their navigation. Hundreds of species died to the silence because we were not there to warn you it was coming. She looked at Bora. We knew. For 11 years, we knew the silence was approaching. We could have told you. We could have helped you prepare. We chose not to. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some delegates looked horrified. Others looked angry. Bora's face showed only exhaustion. I understand, she said quietly. We earned this. You did. Yuna agreed. But that is not why I'm here. She stepped onto the platform, standing face to face with Bora. We did not come back for you, Yuna said. We came back because this galaxy is our home too. Because we believe that life is precious. Even the lives of those who hurt us. Because we are human, and humans do not let the darkness win. Her voice softened, just slightly. But we will not apologize for surviving. We will not apologize for returning, and we will never ask your permission again. Humanity will expand where we choose. We will build what we choose. We will defend who we choose. If you try to cage us again, we will simply leave, and this time, we will not come back. She stepped back. Those are our terms. Accept them or don't. The choice is yours. The chamber was silent. The surviving delegates looked at each other. They had no leverage. No power. No options. Humanity had saved them. And humanity was now beyond their control. It was Bora who spoke first. I accept, she said. On behalf of everyone here. On behalf of everyone we lost. I accept your terms, and I offer our deepest apologies for the wrongs we committed against you. She walked down from the platform and stopped in front of Yuna. Then, slowly, she began to applaud. One by one, the other delegates joined her. The sound echoed through the empty hall, filling the spaces where lost species had once sat. It was not the thunderous applause of a full chamber. It was something smaller and sadder, but it was a beginning. Yuna looked at Do-hyun, who had watched everything from the doorway. He nodded once. Humanity had left in silence. They had returned in fire. And now they would rebuild, not as servants of the Council, but as masters of their own destiny. The galaxy would remember this day. The day the stars went dark, and humans brought the light back. The day fear turned to gratitude. The day the Silent Ones finally spoke. Yuna turned to face the survivors. "Let's get to work," she said, and humanity, as it had done so many times before, started building a new tomorrow.